You need to step aside. First class isn't open for student groups." The words landed like a slap, sharp, public, and dressed in a fake smile. I turned, stunned. The boarding gate was buzzing with travelers, but all I could hear was her voice. "Savannah, flight attendant. Perfect bun, navy scarf, name tag angled just right." We stood just inches from the plane door, boarding passes in hand. My sister Amari blinked. "We're not part of a group," she said slowly. "It's just the two of us, seats 1A and 1B. Savannah's smile didn't move, but her eyes did, sweeping over our hoodies, our braids, our backpacks. Then, without warning, she reached out and plucked Amari's boarding pass straight from her hand. No permission, no explanation. Just like that, snatched, like we didn't have the sense to carry it ourselves. "Before we go any further, tell us where you're watching from. Have you ever seen someone's dignity stolen with a smile?" People around us shifted. A couple in line frowned. Someone in a business suit raised an eyebrow. No one said a word. Savannah scanned the pass like it was fake, then turned it over like the truth was hiding on the back. "Unaccompanied minors," she muttered under her breath. "Of course." "I'm sorry," I said sharply, "but is there a problem?" She looked up, finally, and said, "It's just unusual. 2 teens, first class, no adults in sight. It's not a mistake we see often, but it happens." "It's not a mistake," Amari said, reclaiming her pass. "We've flown alone before, and first class is what we paid for." "Well, just hang tight," Savannah said. "We'll need to do a quick check with the manifest and the gate manager. It'll only take a moment." She stepped away without waiting for a response. I could feel it, that knot in my throat. Not fear, not yet. Just that old, familiar pressure. The kind that wraps around you when you realize you're being seen, but not as a person. You're a problem, a situation, something that needs to be verified. We had done everything right. Checked in early, TSA cleared, boarding passes printed and digital, IDs on hand, and still, we were standing here like we'd snuck in through the back of the plane. Amari glanced at me, her voice low. "They're not gonna let us board." "Don't jump to conclusions," I said. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. We'd both seen it coming the moment Savannah saw us. We're 15, not fragile, not new to this. But this was different. This was public. It's one thing to be pulled aside quietly. It's another to be halted at the front of a first-class boarding line, under fluorescent lights, in full view of suits and heels and business travelers sipping triple-shot lattes. Behind us, people kept walking, but around us, the air had changed. You could feel the judgment crawling across skin, not from everyone, but from enough. A man approached, mid-40s, graying hair, clipboard in hand. His name tag read Elliot, and he looked like he was hoping not to be here. "Ladies," he began, "there's been a small discrepancy with the reservation. If you could step to the side, we'll sort it out." I stood straighter. "There is no discrepancy. The tickets were purchased by our legal guardian, our mother. The names on the reservation match our IDs." Amari held hers out without being asked. Elliot took it, glanced down, then gave it back without a word. "We just need to confirm a few things with the gate manager," he mumbled. "This is a pattern," Amari said flatly. Elliot's eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me?" "Whenever 2 black girls show up where we're not expected, suddenly there's a review or a check, but no one double-checked that man's boarding pass." She pointed to the guy who'd just strolled by in gym shorts and earbuds. "And I promise you, he didn't scream first class either." Elliot's mouth opened, then closed. We were led to the side, and just like that, our spots were gone. Boarding continued. Passengers filed past. No one looked at us again. We weren't travelers anymore. We were a disruption. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Then a man in a navy blazer approached. He wore authority like a mask. Tight, artificial. His name tag read Darren Pike, and he smelled like aftershave and cheap solutions. "Mrs. Bell?" he asked. "Yes," I said, straightening. "Araya and Amari Bell." He nodded, expression neutral. "Thank you for your patience. Our crew raised a concern about the booking, specifically about the legitimacy of a first-class reservation for unaccompanied minors without a parent present." "It's legal," I said. "We've flown alone since 13. Our mother booked the flight through the airline's executive portal." "I understand," he said. "But crew discretion plays a role in passenger comfort." There it was. Amari's voice went flat. "You're saying our presence made the staff uncomfortable?" Darren paused, then tried to pivot. "That's not exactly what I said." "No," I said. "But it's what you meant." He sighed. "Look, we can rebook you in the main cabin for today, or place you on a later first-class flight with adult verification at boarding. Translation, we'll let you on. Just not here, not now, and not where people can see you." Amari stared him down. "We're not the ones who need rebooking." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone. "Who are you calling?" Darren asked. "Our mother," I said. His jaw tightened. "You're welcome to." "We don't need your permission," I replied. Amari stepped away, pressing the call button. The phone rang once, then, "Where are you?" Her voice, sharp and calm. "Gate 41, Boston Haven," I said. "They pulled us out of line, said we made the crew uncomfortable." Pause. Then, "Don't talk to anyone else. Sit down, where people can see you. I'm making a call." She hung up. I sat down slowly. People walked by like nothing happened, but something had. Something big. Something they wouldn't understand until it was too late. Because they hadn't just blocked 2 girls from boarding a flight. They'd pulled the boarding pass out of the hands of the daughters of Loretta Bell. And if they didn't know what that meant yet, they were about to. Somewhere on the top floor of a glass building in Greenwich, Connecticut, a woman stood still, phone in one hand, coffee forgotten in the other. Loretta Bell didn't pace when she was angry. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't call security. She called systems. Her assistant, Kara, stood nearby, watching her boss with the trained stillness of someone who knew. When Loretta got quiet, something was about to get very loud. "They pulled them from the gate," Loretta said into the phone. "Boarding passes were in hand. Verified. TSA cleared. Still, they were removed." There was a pause. Then, "Was it Savannah?" Loretta didn't answer. She didn't need to. The name had already circulated before. Savannah Baird. Ventra Wings' most decorated first-class crew chief, known for perfection, for polish, and for quietly questioning passengers who didn't look like they fit the brand. The voice on the other end sighed. "We'll look into it." "No," Loretta said. "You'll do more than that." She walked to the window, looking out over the Elliston Equity Campus. 4 buildings, 220 employees, $3.1 billion in managed assets. The company she'd built from scratch, brick by strategic brick. But right now, none of that mattered. Because someone had decided her daughters didn't belong on a plane their family helped finance. And that changed everything. Loretta tapped her headset. "Kara," she said calmly, "get me Oliver Wu, primary counsel on the Ventra IPO, and Sonia Trask at Treasury Strategy. Have them patch in within 7 minutes, then cue the Elliston Systems Access dashboard. We're freezing all uplinks to Ventra Wings, effective immediately." Kara didn't ask why. She just said, "Yes, ma'am." Ventra Wing was 3 days away from a massive initial public offering, $350 million expected on the table, fueled by a combination of mid-tier investors and 2 cornerstone firms. One of them was Elliston. What most people didn't know? Ventra didn't just rely on Elliston's capital. They also ran on Elliston's infrastructure, payment processing nodes, passenger analytics AI, regional fleet traffic integration. 12 airports used software that Elliston licensed and monitored, all wrapped in invisible code. Until Loretta decided to pull the plug. By the time the legal team was on the line, She had the exact leverage points up on screen. Payment delay latency, 6.3 hours if uplinks paused. Check-in load disruption, 4 airports. Estimated revenue drop, 9.7 million within 24 hours. "Loretta," Oliver said, voice even. "You're moving fast." "They moved first," she said. "I'm just making sure they understand what it cost them." "Understood. And I want the IPO committee to know. If they don't release a public statement of accountability within 48 hours, Elliston pulls completely. No bridge capital, no PR support, no data integrations." Sonia Trask added, "We can block liquidity overnight and freeze back-end access on 12 airports. Do it. And Loretta," Oliver cleared his throat, "do you want this to stay quiet? Or," Loretta didn't hesitate, "I want it visible, not dramatic, not emotional, just precise. So no one else thinks they can humiliate my daughters and get away with it because it's not on video." In Boston, Araya and Amari sat in 2 molded plastic chairs by the window. They weren't crying. They weren't arguing. They were just waiting. Passengers continued to pass by, but a ripple had begun. Someone posted a short video. Savannah reaching for the boarding pass, Elliot standing to the side, the girls stepping away. No sound, but it didn't need sound. The look on Amari's face said everything. 2 black girls denied first-class boarding. No cause, no apology. Still waiting. The caption was short. The comments were not. Within 20 minutes, the clip hit 18,000 views, then 90,000, then trending. Back in Greenwich, Loretta watched the video in silence. Then she made her next call. It wasn't to the press. It wasn't to the boardroom. It was to Wallace Merrick, CEO of Ventra Wings. They had worked together once, years ago, in a room full of men who mistook her for an assistant until she closed a $600 million wireless satellite acquisition in 42 minutes flat. "Loretta," he said, voice warm but nervous. "I heard something happened at the gate. We're still confirming." "Wallace," she cut in, "you don't need to confirm anything. You need to listen." He went quiet. "My daughters were removed from your first-class line without cause, publicly, with boarding passes in hand. They were made to stand aside while the plane boarded. The attendant implied the tickets were suspicious. Then a manager suggested the crew felt uncomfortable." A long breath. "I see. No, you don't, but you will." She paused, then delivered the blow. "As of this call, Elliston has suspended all capital injections into your IPO. That's $96 million in forward-committed funding. Additionally, we're freezing back-end service support across 4 major terminals: Denver, Chicago, Newark, and San Diego." Wallace's voice cracked. "Loretta, please, this is bigger than just—" "It is," she said. "Much bigger, which is why I'm not stopping there." She tapped a file open. "I'm forwarding a white paper to the Department of Transportation and the House Oversight Committee. Compiled over the last 18 months. AI-flagged incident reports on passenger profiling patterns. Your airline ranks in the top 3. Wallace went silent. "By morning," Loretta continued, "there will be calls for a federal review, and I will make myself available to testify on behalf of passengers who don't have a seat at the table because they're too often denied a seat on the plane." That night, the hashtags changed. No longer just #denied boarding. Now it was #passenger dignity #Elliston pulls out. Who gets to fly? Amari saw it first. "Mom's doing something," she whispered. Araya nodded. "She always is." By morning, the Ventra IPO was suspended. News broke that Elliston Equity had pulled all funding due to ethical risk concerns. CNN reported that 4 major airports were experiencing digital infrastructure slowdowns. FAA quietly confirmed that a federal oversight request had been submitted for discriminatory patterns in airline boarding policies. But inside a kitchen in Connecticut, Loretta Bell didn't toast champagne. She didn't smile. She just looked at the faces of her daughters across the table. You were composed, she said. Amari raised an eyebrow. We wanted to scream. But you didn't, Loretta said. And that made them listen harder. Araya whispered, we just wanted to get on the plane. I know, Loretta replied. But maybe this was the better flight. By the time we reached the gate seating area again, our flight had taken off. Flight 3125 to Dallas was gone. No announcement, no apology, just silence, like we'd been quietly erased from the day's schedule. Amari sat stiffly in the molded plastic chair, arms crossed, fingers tapping restlessly on her elbow. I sat beside her, trying to keep my breathing even. Inside, I could feel something breaking loose. Not anger exactly, but clarity. Something had shifted, not just in us, but around us. I'm not imagining this, Amari said suddenly. I glanced at her. What? The way people are looking at us, like they know. She was right. Something was different. The gate agents, the passengers lingering nearby, even a man in a suit checking his phone near the window. They weren't pretending not to see us anymore. They were watching us, quietly, warily. And then my phone buzzed. So did hers. We both looked down. A single message. From a classmate we barely talked to. Is this you guys? You're on Twitter. I clicked the link. It was the video. Someone standing behind the ropes at the gate, had filmed everything. Savannah snatching the boarding pass, us being pulled to the side. Darren pretending it was procedure. Amari's voice, cool but sharp. You're saying we make the crew uncomfortable. The post already had 180,000 views, and climbing. Amari let out a breath like she'd been punched in the stomach. It's going viral. I nodded, jaw clenched. For a moment, we didn't say anything. We weren't just two girls being humiliated anymore. We were becoming content. Then came the comments. Some were what you'd expect. Outrage, support, people calling it racism, classism, both. But others. Must be nice having a rich mom to fix your problems. They should be grateful they even get to fly first class at 15. They probably had fake tickets. Airlines have policies for a reason. Amari gritted her teeth. Why do they always think we're lying? Because we don't look like what they expect in row 1, I said quietly. More buzzes. DMs, mentions, news aggregators. A journalist from Teen Vision wanted to highlight our courage. A producer from a talk show asked if we'd join for a short segment on systemic bias. Amari stared at the screen. We're not activists. I looked up. We didn't ask for this. No, but now it's asking for us. A man approached us, probably late 20s, baseball cap, media badge clipped to his hoodie. Excuse me, he said gently. I was the one who posted the first video. I didn't mean to exploit anything, it didn't sit right. We nodded. I've been streaming updates, he said. If you want to say anything, I'm still live, but only if you're ready. Amari opened her mouth, but stopped. I shook my head. Not yet, he nodded. Respect. As he walked away, Amari slumped slightly in her seat. This isn't just ours anymore. I knew what she meant. Our story had been scooped up by the timeline, chewed on by opinion threads, retweeted into oblivion, turned into a symbol we never agreed to be. We weren't being seen as kids who were wronged. We were a moment, and moments are easy to misinterpret. We stayed at the gate another 30 minutes. More people came up. Some offered comfort. One woman, probably mid-50s, black, put a hand on Amari's shoulder and said, I saw what happened. You girls held your heads up. That matters. Then she walked away, and that meant more than all the viral comments combined. Then came the statement. Not an apology, a statement. Posted by Ventra Wings' official account. We are aware of a situation involving 2 passengers earlier today at Boston Haven International Airport. Ventra Wings values inclusivity and is reviewing the matter thoroughly. We regret any inconvenience caused. Amari scoffed. Inconvenience? I reread it. They're trying to sound neutral, like this wasn't a public humiliation. It's a press bandage, Amari muttered. Cheap and vague. And then, it got worse. Someone in the first-class cabin from our original flight posted their own video. Blurry, shaky, but you could clearly see the moment we were walked off the boarding line. And someone in the background whispering, "Guess they don't belong up here." The post. Ventra staff looked visibly uncomfortable when the girls showed up. You could tell something was off. That word again. Uncomfortable. "What about our comfort?" Amari whispered. I had no answer. Suddenly, another woman appeared in front of us. Mid-30s, sleek dress, calm voice. "I was also on your flight," she said quietly. "And I filed a report. I just wanted you to know I saw it too. You were calm, respectful. It wasn't you." Amari looked up. "Thank you." She nodded. "More people saw. Don't let them twist the silence." And just like that, a ripple became a wave. We opened our phones again. Now we were being tagged by news anchors, civil rights lawyers, travel watchdog groups. One tweet stood out, from someone named Ellen Harper, a known lawyer who took on corporate discrimination cases. This is how it happens, not with slurs, not with yelling, but with a smile and a clipboard, and a policy that suddenly needs verifying. These girls did nothing wrong, but they're the ones made to explain. That's bias, and it's not subtle. Amari leaned back in her chair, fingers shaking slightly. "I didn't want this," she said. "I just wanted to get to Dallas, speak at the conference, represent us." "You still can," I said. She shook her head. "Not like this. Now if we speak, it's a headline. If we stay quiet, it's a blank screen they'll fill in for us." I understood. We weren't people anymore. We were a proxy battle, a symbol of a system too many people had already experienced, but never filmed. Then my phone rang. "Mom," I answered instantly. "We're seeing everything," she said. "We know," I whispered. "I'm getting calls from the Times, from Bloomberg, from the House Oversight Committee. What do we do?" There was a pause. Then Mom's voice, low and razor sharp. "You don't owe anyone your pain," she said. "But if you speak, make it your terms, not theirs." Amari looked at me as I ended the call. "I'm scared," she said. "I know." "You?" "Terrified." Then she laughed once, soft and bitter. Funny how flying first class turns into fighting for basic dignity. I nodded. Guess we always flew knowing we were being watched. Just never like this. We sat in silence. The airport moved on. Boarding calls, luggage wheels, screaming toddlers. But inside us, something stopped pretending. We weren't invisible. We weren't powerless. And we weren't going away quietly. By the time we made it to the lounge, a woman in a gray vest and flat shoes was waiting at the entrance. "Ms. Bell?" she asked. "We've arranged a private seating area for you both, right this way." Her voice was smooth. Too smooth. Like someone trying very hard not to slip up again. I didn't say anything. I just followed Amari, who followed the woman, who probably got a memo that said, "Be careful. They're the daughters of someone important now." We were no longer those girls who didn't belong. Now we were those girls everyone had seen. And no one wanted to be the next clip. The private seating area was tucked into a corner behind a frosted glass wall. It smelled like espresso and brand management. Amari dropped into a leather chair, shoulders tight, lips pressed together. "I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore," she muttered. I did. I just didn't have the words for it. We hadn't even sat for 10 minutes when a screen near the bar lit up. It was muted, but the headline said everything. Elliston Equity releases passenger dignity mandate following incident at Boston Airport. The words hit like a quiet explosion. Amari leaned forward, eyes wide. "Wait, what?" I grabbed the remote off the table, turned up the volume. A clean-cut anchor in a navy blazer was reading from the teleprompter. The policy, crafted by Elliston's CFO Loretta Bell, is being called the Passenger Dignity Mandate. It outlines updated expectations for how airlines treat passengers of color, minors, disabled passengers, and non-traditional travelers in first and business class. Compliance will be mandatory for any airline seeking future investment from Elliston or its partner funds. The move comes after Bell's daughters were reportedly denied boarding under questionable circumstances, an event that has now drawn national scrutiny. I didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. She really did it. She turned a boarding pass into a policy. Amari blinked. She wrote rules? She always writes rules, I said. Just not for planes. Until now. Our phones started buzzing again. This time it wasn't social media. It was press inquiries, requests for comment, invitations to speak. Some from local networks, some from The View, some from BBC World. Even The Times sent a polite, persistent email. We're covering the broader implications of the Passenger Dignity Mandate. Would you be open to sharing your story? Amari looked at me. They're trying to turn us into a movement. We're not a movement, I said. No, she said slowly. But Mom might be. A few minutes later, the TV cut to footage from the Elliston press conference. Loretta stood behind a sleek podium with a muted backdrop of navy and gray. She wasn't smiling. She never did for cameras, but her presence filled the frame. This isn't about revenge, she said. And it's not about one flight. It's about patterns, about passengers being profiled not by their behavior, but by their appearance. About rules that get rewritten in real time, depending on who's in the seat. We've spent years investing in the infrastructure that powers modern travel. Communications, logistics, analytics. But if we don't also invest in how people are treated while they travel, then we're just reinforcing the same systems that exclude them. The Passenger Dignity Mandate is our way of saying dignity is not optional. Not when you're at the gate, not when you're in the air, not when you're 15 years old, black, and flying in first class. Amari's hand was over her mouth. Mine was shaking. The press conference continued. Loretta didn't grandstand. She didn't cry. She just delivered bulletproof logic, backed by data, reinforced with lived experience. She cited numbers, cases, patterns of behavior gathered over 2 years. A full quarter of passengers removed for verification issues were teens of color traveling alone. An overwhelming majority of flagged passengers in first class were black or brown, despite accounting for less than 5% of ticket sales in premium cabins. It wasn't a guess. It was a record, and she'd written it into history. She's going to change things, Amari whispered. Yeah, I said. She already has. And yet, something felt heavy. Like the spotlight wasn't just a light, it was a weight. Amari glanced at me. Do you think people will actually change, or just sign the policy and pretend? I don't know, I said honestly. But I knew one thing. No airline CEO wanted to be the next one trending under #Passenger Dignity Fail. Later that day, we were offered a rebooked flight. First class again. Different crew. Different energy. Too polite. Too eager. One flight attendant greeted us with, "We're so honored to have you. Please let us know if there's anything we can improve." It felt rehearsed, like they'd read a script. Halfway through the flight, a woman across the aisle, older, white hair, thick glasses, looked at us for a beat too long. Amari noticed. "Still happening?" she murmured. I nodded. They weren't seeing us. They were seeing what had happened to us. After landing, we were met by a black SUV waiting on the tarmac. Mom was already inside. We climbed in, dropped our bags, and sat in silence. For once, the car wasn't filled with questions. No how was tea. I didn't say anything. I just followed Amari, who followed the woman, who probably got a memo that said, "Be careful. They're the daughters of someone important now." We were no longer those girls who didn't belong. Now we were those girls everyone had seen, and no one wanted to be the next clip. The private seating area was tucked into a corner behind a frosted glass wall. It smelled like espresso and brand management. Amari dropped into a leather chair, shoulders tight, lips pressed together. "I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore," she muttered. I did. I just didn't have the words for it. We hadn't even sat for 10 minutes when a screen near the bar lit up. It was muted, but the headline said everything. Elliston Equity releases passenger dignity mandate following incident at Boston Airport. The words hit like a quiet explosion. Amari leaned forward, eyes wide. "Wait, what?" I grabbed the remote off the table, turned up the volume. A clean-cut anchor in a navy blazer was reading from the teleprompter. The policy, crafted by Elliston's CFO, Loretta Bell, is being called the Passenger Dignity Mandate. It outlines updated expectations for how airlines treat passengers of color, minors, disabled passengers, and non-traditional travelers in first and business class. Compliance will be mandatory for any airline seeking future investment from Elliston or its partner funds. The move comes after Bell's daughters were reportedly denied boarding under questionable circumstance, an event that has now drawn national scrutiny. I didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. She really did it. She turned a boarding pass into a policy. Amari blinked. "She wrote rules?" "She always writes rules," I said. "Just not for planes. Until now." Our phones started buzzing again. This time it wasn't social media. It was press inquiries, requests for comment, invitations to speak, some from local networks, some from The View, some from BBC World. Even The Times sent a polite, persistent email. "We're covering the broader implications of the passenger dignity mandate. Would you be open to sharing your story?" Amari looked at me. "They're trying to turn us into a movement." "We're not a movement," I said. "No," she said slowly. "But Mom might be." A few minutes later, the TV cut to footage from the Elliston press conference. Loretta stood behind a sleek podium with a muted backdrop of navy and gray. She wasn't smiling. She never did for cameras, but her presence filled the frame. "This isn't about revenge," she said. "And it's not about one flight. It's about patterns, about passengers being profiled not by their behavior, but by their appearance. About rules that get rewritten in real time, depending on who's in the seat. We've spent years investing in the infrastructure that powers modern travel, communications, logistics, analytics. But if we don't also invest in how people are treated while they travel, then we're just reinforcing the same systems that exclude them. The passenger dignity mandate is our way of saying, dignity is not optional. Not when you're at the gate, not when you're in the air, not when you're 15 years old, black, and flying in first class." Amari's hand was over her mouth. Mine was shaking. The press conference continued. Loretta didn't grandstand. She didn't cry. She just delivered bulletproof logic, backed by data, reinforced with lived experience. She cited numbers, cases, patterns of behavior gathered over 2 years. A full quarter of passengers removed for verification issues were teens of color traveling alone. An overwhelming majority of flagged passengers in first class were black or brown, despite accounting for less than 5% of ticket sales in premium cabins. It wasn't a guess. It was a record, and she'd written it into history. "She's going to change things," Amari whispered. "Yeah," I said. "She already has." And yet, something felt heavy. Like the spotlight wasn't just a light, it was a weight. Amari glanced at me. "Do you think people will actually change? Or just sign the policy and pretend?" "I don't know," I said honestly. But I knew one thing. No airline CEO wanted to be the next one trending under #PassengerDignityFail. Later that day, we were offered a rebooked flight. First class again. Different crew, different energy. Too polite, too eager. One flight attendant greeted us with, "We're so honored to have you. Please let us know if there's anything we can improve." It felt rehearsed, like they'd read a script. Halfway through the flight, a woman across the aisle, older, white hair, thick glasses, looked at us for a beat too long. Amari noticed. "Still happening?" she murmured. I nodded. They weren't seeing us. They were seeing what had happened to us. After landing, we were met by a black SUV waiting on the tarmac. Mom was already inside. We climbed in, dropped our bags, and sat in silence. For once, the car wasn't filled with questions. No, how was the flight? No. Did they say anything else? Just the hum of the tires. Finally, Loretta spoke. "You did good." Amari snorted softly. "We just sat there." "No," she said. "You let it be seen. That's harder than it sounds." Back home, we watched the rest unfold from a distance. Ventra's stock prospects dropped. 3 other airlines signed the mandate within 48 hours. One smaller airline tried to sidestep it and was dragged across national headlines by a mother in Atlanta whose autistic son was removed from a first-class flight without cause. The mandate was now more than policy. It was a line in the sand. 1 week later, Loretta was invited to testify before the Transportation Ethics Committee. She agreed, on one condition, that 2 teenage girls would speak first, not to prove anything, just to remind them what happens when dignity is denied at 35,000 feet. We weren't ready, but maybe we didn't have to be. Maybe it wasn't about readiness. Maybe it was about refusing to stay quiet just because we were supposed to be grateful. The first email came at 6:12 a.m. Subject line, "Entitled much?" Inside was a single sentence. "Must be nice having a billionaire mom to throw a tantrum when you don't get your way." By 8 a.m. There were dozens more. Not all hateful, but enough. Enough to feel like maybe people were starting to forget what happened. Or worse, rewrite it. Amari sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling in silence. Her smoothie was melting. She hadn't touched it. I stood across from her, holding my own phone like it might bite. "You see this one?" she asked. She slid the screen toward me, a tweet going viral. "So we're canceling an entire airline because 2 kids didn't get to fly first class? Where's the outrage when regular people get bumped every day?" I didn't reply. She scrolled to another. "This feels more like flexing than fighting racism. Maybe they should have just accepted the economy seats and moved on." I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because that's exactly what they were waiting for. Instead, I said quietly, "We didn't ask to be bumped. We were removed. That's different." Amari didn't look up. "They don't care. They just want to feel like we took something from them." On TV, the narrative had begun to shift. The same networks that praised Loretta's speech were now interviewing industry experts who spoke in polished phrases like unintended consequences of weaponizing capital, the fine line between justice and disruption, the risk of overcorrection in public-private partnerships. One man on a panel said, "It's not that what happened to the girls wasn't unfortunate, but grounding an entire IPO and threatening access to national terminals, that's not correction, that's control." Another woman chimed in, "The danger here is setting a precedent where emotional response overrides policy." I stared at the screen. Emotional response? Is that what they called making a system answer for itself? That afternoon, Mom got a call. She didn't say who it was, just closed the door to her office and stayed in there for 2 hours. When she finally came out, her expression was unreadable. That was the scariest part. Because Loretta Bell was always readable, until she wasn't. We didn't ask her what happened, not right away. But that night, after dinner, she said quietly, "They're starting to push back." Amari looked up from her plate. "Who's they?" "The board at Ventra, some of our partners, even other investors. They say the mandate is too aggressive, that it's interfering with market freedom." I blinked. "You mean they don't want to treat people fairly if it costs them something?" Loretta didn't answer, which was its own answer. I could tell she was thinking, not just as a mother, but as a strategist. She had declared a line in the sand, and now the waves were trying to wash it away. Later that night, a familiar name trended. Savannah Baird, the flight attendant. Someone had dug up old reviews, interviews, even a podcast appearance from 2 years ago where she said something offhand like, Some passengers just don't fit the brand of first class, and it's awkward for everyone when the vibe is off. The internet lit up. #FireSavannah trended for 2 days straight. Some people wanted her badge, her career, her life. But something about it didn't sit right with me. I don't want to destroy her, I said to Amari. I just didn't want her to destroy us. Amari nodded slowly. But now we're symbols, and symbols aren't allowed to forgive. At school, things got weird fast. Some kids avoided us, like we'd turned radioactive. Others asked for photos. A few tried to argue with us in the hallway. One girl even said, "My uncle's a pilot, and he says this whole thing is just manufactured drama." I didn't even reply, because if you have to argue your own reality, you've already lost. Then came the email from the conference board, the one in Dallas we were supposed to attend. They wanted us to close the weekend, on stage, live streamed, not to talk about STEM or youth leadership, but about what happened at the airport. I stared at the screen for a long time, then turned to Mom. "Should we do it?" She paused, then said, "That depends. Do you want to speak, or do you feel obligated to?" I thought about it, about how everyone now expected us to lead a conversation we didn't ask to start. Amari said, "If we don't speak, they'll just say whatever they want. And if we do speak," I said, "they'll say we're being dramatic." Mom smiled softly. "Then say it clearly, so they have nothing left to guess." We agreed. We'd speak, not as victims, not as heroes, but as two girls who got tired of apologizing for taking up space in places we earned. The night before the flight, Amari stood by the window in our room. "Do you think we'll ever fly again without being watched like a headline?" I joined her at the glass. Outside, the wind was bending trees. The world kept moving. "I don't think it matters," I said, "because now we know how to watch back." The ballroom was colder than I expected. Rows of chairs stretched out in even lines, each filled with bright-eyed teens and calm-looking adults wearing lanyards and conference badges. The banner above the stage read, "National Youth Leadership Forum." Closing plenary spotlights were already warming the podium. We stood behind the curtain just out of sight, our palms sweating against index cards we might not even use. Amari glanced at me. "You ready?" I exhaled. "No," she smiled. "Same. We weren't keynote speakers. We weren't headliners. We were a last-minute insert, added after the incident made headlines. What we said today wasn't about getting applause. It was about getting it right." The moderator walked out first, polished, friendly, the kind of adult who could speak in bullet points. "Before we close today's session," she said into the mic, "we have two special guests, delegates you may have heard about for reasons far bigger than their intended panel topic." The room quieted. They didn't ask for attention. They didn't demand a stage. But their story reminded us all what leadership looks like when you're not trying to be seen, just trying to be treated fairly. She gestured behind her. "And now, I'd like to welcome Araya and Amari Bell." We stepped out into the light. A wave of faces looked back at us, some curious, some nervous, some clearly knowing the full story, others still trying to figure out who we were and why it mattered. I took the mic first. Not because I was braver, just because Amari hated going first. "Hi," I said. My voice didn't shake, but my fingers did. "We were supposed to be here this weekend to talk about civic engagement and youth leadership. That was the plan, but plans change." Polite laughter, nothing loud. I continued. "Last week, we were removed from a first-class boarding line at Boston Haven Airport. Our seats were confirmed. Our IDs matched. There was no disruption, no issue, but somehow there was still a problem." I looked out across the crowd. The problem wasn't us. It was the space we occupied. The assumption that we didn't belong there because of how we looked, how young we were, how we dressed. Amari took the mic. She didn't read from her card. "I'm not here to attack anyone," she said. "I'm not here to yell, but I need you to hear this clearly. We did everything right. We followed every rule, every policy, every procedure, but that didn't protect us. She paused. Because sometimes the system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to. The room fell into that kind of silence where no one dares even clear their throat. We didn't go viral because we screamed, I added. We went viral because we didn't, because we sat, because we waited, because the quiet humiliation was so obvious, even people watching couldn't ignore it. I scanned the audience again. Some students nodded. A few adults shifted uncomfortably. A young black girl in the third row looked straight at us, eyes locked, unblinking. We're not asking for special treatment, Amari said. We're asking for consistent treatment. I took a breath. This was the hard part. And we're not the only ones, I said. There are kids pulled aside for the way they look. Disabled passengers treated like problems. Trans travelers harassed for using the wrong line. Parents judged for their accents. None of that gets filmed. Amari added, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We both stood at the mic now, side by side, just like we'd been at the gate, at the lounge, at the window. You may not remember our names 5 years from now, I said, but I hope you remember this feeling. Amari nodded. The next time you see someone being quietly erased, ask yourself, what if that were me? What if that were my sister? We stepped back. No grand finish, no catchphrase, just the truth. And sometimes, that's enough. The room erupted, not in loud cheers, but in standing silence. The kind where people stand because sitting feels wrong. The young black girl in the third row wiped her cheek. The moderator returned to the stage, eyes shining. No wrap-up summary, no panel debate, just one sentence. Thank you for reminding us that leadership isn't always loud, but it is always seen. Backstage, Amari leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. I didn't cry, she said, surprised. Me neither, I said, then added, not yet. She grinned. That felt clean. Yeah, I said, it did. By the time we reached the lobby, our phones were buzzing again. This time, not with hate, but with something softer. Messages from students, parents, educators. One woman messaged, I showed your speech to my daughter. She said, I want to walk like them someday. Another, I fly for work every week. I've seen this happen. I never spoke up. I will now. That night, Mom didn't say much. She didn't need to. She just hugged us both longer than usual and whispered, you carried it well. Amari whispered back, so did you. The next morning, a headline quietly slid across the bottom of the news ticker. 4 more airlines signed passenger dignity mandate after Youth Forum speech. We didn't smile, not yet, because this wasn't about celebration. It was about momentum, and we knew how easy it was for momentum to fade. But for now, for today, we had spoken. And the world had listened. We weren't expecting to see her again. Not in that lounge, not that day, not after everything. But there she was, Savannah Baird, same platinum bun, same tailored Navy uniform, same voice, just softer now, like someone who had learned how thin the ice really was. She didn't look surprised to see us. We did. Amari was the first to speak. You're still flying? Savannah straightened. Not officially. I'm on administrative leave, but the union's pushing for reinstatement. Due process, they said. I stared at her. She didn't blink. I came to apologize, she added. If I made you feel... You didn't make us feel anything, I said, cutting her off. You acted. We responded. She hesitated. I didn't mean to... Amari folded her arms. You didn't mean for it to go viral. That's not the same as meaning it didn't happen. Silence. Savannah opened her mouth but thought better of it. Then she did something that surprised us both. She stepped back and walked away. No comeback, no justification, just quiet retreat. Back at home, Mom was already waiting by the fireplace when we returned. She looked calm, but in that way she always did when something was brewing underneath. There's a letter, she said, handing me the envelope. no stamp, no return address. Just one line at the bottom. Private advisory, confidential. Amari and I watched her open it. She read silently, then again, then folded it and placed it on the coffee table like it was ticking. "They're warning me," she said quietly. "Who?" I asked. "People who don't sign their names. Investment boards, policy liaisons. The kind that pretend they're neutral, but always pick a side when the math gets uncomfortable." Amari's brows furrowed. "What are they warning you about?" Loretta didn't answer right away. Then she said, "They're calling this a power move, not a protection move." I frowned. "You protected us. That's not power, that's parenting." "They don't see it that way," she said. "They see an executive using capital to punish subjective discomfort. They're afraid I've set a precedent." That word again. Precedent. Like dignity was a loophole someone might exploit. Loretta stood. "One firm pulled a $40 million co-investment this morning, quietly. No press, just an internal notice. We're reviewing the optics of Elliston's leverage." Amari blinked. "They're punishing you for punishing the airline?" "No," Loretta said. "They're afraid of who's next." She didn't say it, but we could see it in her eyes. This wasn't about Ventra anymore. This was about the industry protecting itself. And when industries protect themselves, they don't go after the ones who shout. They go after the ones who change policy. The next day, we were scheduled to attend a small community roundtable, organized by a local youth justice nonprofit. Low-key, no press, just voices, or so we thought. Because right before we walked in, Mom's phone buzzed. She froze, then turned the screen toward us. A leaked memo. Internal from Nexa Capital, one of Elliston's former co-investment partners. "Concerns rising re. Bell family's public escalation model. Recommend distancing from future youth-led governance models. Risk replicable disruption." Amari stared. "Replicable disruption?" "They're saying what we did," I murmured, "is contagious." Loretta didn't blink. "Good." We entered the room. The circle was filled with high schoolers, parents, a few local organizers. One woman stood up when she saw us. She didn't speak. She just clapped, slowly, firmly. Then others followed. Not applause for a speech, applause for showing up. Amari sat down beside me, whispering, "Let them be scared." I nodded. "But let's stay smart. You'll both have 3 minutes. The producer's voice was calm, professional. Her headset sat tilted over one ear, clipboard in hand. We were seated in a green room that was more gray than green, under fluorescent lights that made everything look too sharp. 3 minutes? Amari asked. "That's it?" The woman smiled, thin and tight. "This segment's already full, but they wanted to give you space. Just keep it tight. And please, don't mention any lawsuits or specific airline names." I raised an eyebrow. "But they're the ones who—" "I know," she cut in, still smiling. "But it's national TV. We have to keep it balanced." We weren't surprised. By now, we understood how people liked their justice served. Polite, palatable, without naming names. The studio was colder than the lounge. The lights brighter. The silence heavier. We stood behind a camera wall, waiting. On the main stage, the anchor wrapped up a story about market trends and inflation. Then, with a practiced pivot, coming up next, the twin sisters who sparked a national conversation about fairness at 35,000 feet. A graphic rolled. Our faces, side by side, muted, serious, framed like change makers or troublemakers, depending on who was watching. When we stepped out, the cameras were already rolling. The anchor greeted us warmly, but with that same distant professionalism we'd learned to spot. "So, Araya, Amari, you've been called everything from courageous to controversial. Let's start simple. What happened that day?" We could have gone into the details again, but we didn't. Instead, Amari said, "What happened is what happens to a lot of people. We just got filmed." I nodded. "And we didn't scream. That made it easier to hear." The anchor tilted his head, intrigued. "You've been praised, but also criticized. Some say this is about class, not race. That your mother's influence pushed too hard. What do you say to that?" Amari leaned in. "If being treated fairly in a place we paid to be makes people uncomfortable, maybe the problem isn't our seats. Maybe it's their definition of comfort." The anchor paused, then said, "Well said." The segment ended with muted applause. No fireworks, no standing ovation. But we hadn't come for that. We'd come to hold the line. Backstage, our phones were already vibrating again. Comments, clips, messages. Some angry, some grateful, some confused. We didn't reply to any of them. We just looked at each other and nodded. We'd said what needed to be said. That night, we sat with Mom at the dining table. She was quiet, watching something on her tablet. A congressional committee banner framed the screen. The subtext read, "Scheduled appearance, Loretta Bell, CEO, Elliston Equity." Amari leaned in. "They confirmed it?" Loretta nodded. "Next week, Subcommittee on Transportation Ethics." I stared at the screen. Are they trying to stop the mandate? "They're trying to determine if I overstepped," Amari said. "And did you?" Loretta didn't blink. "No, but that's not the question they'll ask." We knew how this worked now. It wasn't about who was right. It was about who made people uncomfortable enough to change something. And Loretta Bell? She made entire systems uncomfortable. The hearing was already being teased on cable news. One anchor called it the trial of the billion-dollar conscience. Another, the day Capitol meets culture in Congress. But to us, it was just Tuesday. Just another day where someone tried to unwrite our experience, and Mom stood in the way. Later that evening, I sat alone in my room, scrolling. A video popped up. It was us. From earlier that day. Amari saying, "We didn't scream. That made it easier to hear." Someone had turned it into a soundbite. Overlaid music. Subtitles in 3 languages. It had over 1.2 million views. I didn't feel proud. Not really. I felt visible, which for us was a kind of power and a kind of danger. Downstairs, Amari was reading a letter. She called up the stairs. "Zora?" "Yeah." "You should see this." It was handwritten, careful cursive, ink smudged at the corners. "I was on the same flight. I watched. I said nothing. I froze. Not because I agreed with what they did, but because I didn't know how to stop it. You two reminded me that silence helps no one. I'm sorry, and I'm grateful." Amari looked at me. "That's the 3rd one this week." I nodded. It wasn't going away. But maybe neither were we. What would you have done if you were in the lounge that day? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. The hearing room in DC looked like something from a movie. Tall wood-paneled walls, bright white lights, nameplates arranged like chess pieces. A long table with a single microphone at the center. Behind it sat our mother, Loretta Bell. No podium, no entourage, just her. And the truth. We watched from a small room next door. The video feed broadcasted on a delay. Amari sat with her arms crossed. I kept my eyes on the screen, even when it hurt. The subcommittee was called the Oversight Panel on Private Capital and Public Ethics. But from the way some of the members were looking at her, you'd think they were preparing to put her on trial. Congresswoman Denton, gray blazer, sharp voice, leaned forward. "Ms. Bell, are you aware that since your public release of the passenger dignity mandate, 4 airlines have delayed IPOs and 2 infrastructure deals were canceled?" Loretta nodded. "Yes. And you don't consider that economic disruption?" "I consider it accountability," she said simply. A few murmurs rippled through the chamber. Denton continued. Are you not concerned that using your capital to pressure airlines into compliance sets a dangerous precedent? I'm more concerned that allowing unchecked discrimination to persist without consequences sets a worse one. Amari grinned. That's Mom. Next came Senator Kessler, tall, slow-speaking, careful. Ms. Bell, many believe your response was personal, that you weaponized your influence because your daughters were involved, that if this had happened to anyone else, Elliston wouldn't have moved. Loretta folded her hands. You're right. That silenced the room. But that's how most change begins. Someone gets hurt, and someone with power finally says, enough. She leaned forward, her voice cool but cutting. Ask yourself why it takes someone like me to move markets for this issue to matter. We felt it in the room, even through the screen, that shift. Congressman Hale, younger, tech-savvy, tried to pivot. Ms. Bell, the mandate has noble language. But isn't there a risk in enforcing ethics as hard policy? Who decides what's offensive? What's unfair? Loretta didn't blink. Offense is subjective, but patterns aren't. And when those patterns overwhelmingly impact the same types of passengers, black, brown, young, disabled, that's no longer offense. That's architecture. Silence. Even the cameraman didn't move. Then, from the back row, came something unexpected. Congresswoman Etta Monroe. Southern, older, soft-spoken, but razor-sharp underneath. She adjusted her glasses, then addressed the room. I've reviewed the data Elliston submitted. I've flown for over 40 years, and I've been in the seat where people assume I don't belong. She turned to Loretta. Thank you, Ms. Bell, for naming it out loud. Amari reached for my hand. We didn't say anything. We just held on. The hearing continued for 2 hours. Questions, retorts, subtext. But Loretta stayed steady, never raised her voice, never broke the rhythm. She didn't argue to win. She argued so the truth had to sit in the room with them. After the hearing, reporters swarmed the steps outside. She didn't stop to speak, just walked to the car, calm as ever. When she stepped in, Amari asked, "Did it go how you expected?" Loretta exhaled. They came to box me in. I gave them glass walls. That night, we watched the replay. Commentators were split. Some called her calculating. Some called her revolutionary. One said, that was the day Wall Street met a moral line. But the headline we remembered most came from a quiet opinion blog. She didn't fight for revenge. She fought for repair. A week later, 8 airlines signed the mandate. 3 airports announced staff retraining initiatives. 2 national travel agencies updated their ethics policies. But none of that changed how people looked at us in the grocery store, at school, in first class. You feel like it's stuck? Amari asked one afternoon. What? This story. Around us. I nodded. It'll fade, but maybe it's supposed to leave a mark. Mom had left hers. Now we had to decide what kind of mark we wanted to leave too. The school hallway smelled the same. Faint cleaning fluid, vending machine coffee, someone's overused vanilla body spray. Same squeaky lockers, same announcements crackling from the speaker above. But the way people looked at us, that was different. It had been 3 weeks since the hearing. 2 since Mom's policy went federal. 7 days since someone slid a note into my locker that said, "Your mom's famous." What's that like? No name, no context. Just that. A quiet reminder that we weren't just Aria and Amari anymore. We were those girls. In English class, someone asked our opinion on a poem about justice. Half the room turned toward us like we were the moral compass. I just shrugged. Amari said, "It's not always about right or wrong. Sometimes it's about who gets to keep talking." No one asked us again after that. At lunch, a kid we barely knew asked if we were doing a TED Talk. Another slid into our DMs with, "Do you think you'll run for office one day?" We still took the bus, still did our homework, still argued about who left the toothpaste cap off. But the world didn't treat us like normal anymore. And to be honest, we didn't feel normal either. That weekend, we went with Mom to the grocery store. Nothing special, except that when we got to the register, the cashier paused. "You're them," she said. Amari gave a polite nod. "Yes, ma'am." The woman smiled, kind but awkward. "What you did, it mattered. A lot." Then she leaned forward and whispered, "They didn't expect girls like you to speak up like that." We smiled, paid, walked out. But the words followed us all the way to the car. Girls like you. Back home, I sat on the stairs and watched Mom sort mail. She was quieter now, not because she was tired, but because she was thinking in layers we couldn't see. "You okay?" I asked. She looked up. "Better than okay." Then, "Why do you ask?" I shrugged. "I guess you don't seem done." "I'm not." She set a manila envelope aside. "You don't flip a system with one mandate. You chip it, slowly, precisely." Amari came down the stairs with her tablet. "You going to keep pushing?" Loretta nodded. "Until the day I can fly without wondering if you're safe on the other end of the gate." That night, we sat by the fire. No cameras, no speeches, just the three of us and the sound of ice in our glasses. Amari asked something I'd been holding in. "Do you think this all happened for a reason?" Loretta didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No, I don't believe the universe causes pain for a lesson, but I do believe in choosing what to do with it." Silence. Then she added, "You didn't start this, but you did choose how to carry it." Amari whispered, "It still doesn't feel fair." "It wasn't," Mom said, "but it was real, and you made it undeniable." Later, in our room, I pulled out the notebook I hadn't touched in weeks. The one with quotes and dreams and pages of nothing. I flipped to a blank page. Wrote at the top, "They said we didn't belong. Now they say we changed something. But we were always just trying to get to the next gate." Amari peeked over my shoulder. "Sounds like an opening line." "To what?" She smiled. "Whatever comes next." We were halfway through chemistry class when it happened. Mrs. Elston was lecturing about covalent bonds. I was doodling in the corner of my notes. Amari was chewing the end of her pen, eyes fixed on the whiteboard but miles away. Then someone's phone buzzed. Then another. Then the whisper started. "Did you see this? Oh my God, it's happening again. Isn't this the same airline?" I looked at Amari. She already had her phone out. The headline was short. "Black mother and son removed from flight after being seated in first class." Below that, a blurry video. You couldn't see the full context, but you could hear the mother's voice, calm, confused, and a flight attendant insisting, "We'll sort this at the gate." The boy looked about 10, small, quiet, clutching a book. A familiar ache returned to my chest. Not anger, not shock. Just that same cold recognition. We watched the clip twice, 3 times. By then, it had over 600,000 views. And every third comment? "Where are the Bell sisters? Is this another passenger dignity case?" Paging Loretta Bell. Amari dropped her phone on the desk like it burned her. "Why is this ours now?" After class, we ducked into the media room, locked the door, sat at the back table. Neither of us spoke for a minute. Then I said, "Do we ignore it?" Amari didn't answer right away. Finally, she muttered, "If we do, they'll say we abandoned it. If we speak, they'll say we're making it about us again." We were tired, not from doing too much, but from being expected to do it all. That evening, Mom got a call. She stepped outside to take it. When she came back in, her face was unreadable again. "They want a comment," she said. "CNN, Slate. Even the airline's legal team reached out preemptively." Amari stood. "Why us?" Loretta looked at her gently. "Because the last time this happened, you spoke, and the system shifted." I exhaled. "We don't want to be the voice of every injustice." "You're not," she said. "But you're the echo some people still need to hear." We sat in silence for a long time. The next day, The mother from the video released a statement. It was short, brave, measured. She didn't demand, she didn't threaten, she just said, "My son and I were treated like anomalies instead of customers. I want a world where that's not brave to say, it's just normal." That line stayed with me all day, not because it was perfect, but because it sounded like something we might have said if we hadn't already said it. That night, we wrote something. Not a press statement, not a speech, just a post. We shared it quietly, no hashtags, no dramatics. Just, "We see you, we've been you, we believe you." The post went viral in 12 minutes. Someone commented, "It took me 37 years to feel like I belonged in that cabin." One moment reminded me I never really did. Another, "These girls didn't make it about themselves. They just made sure someone else didn't feel alone in it." Amari read that one twice, then closed her phone. "I still hate that this keeps happening." "Yeah," I said, "but I don't hate that we said something." That weekend, the airline involved suspended the crew. By Monday, 3 more organizations signed onto the mandate. By Wednesday, the Department of Transportation announced it would host a roundtable on passenger equity. And by Friday, the mother from the video messaged us privately. "Thank you. You didn't have to, but you did. My son asked if you were superheroes. I told him no, just girls who remembered what it felt like to be erased." I showed it to Mom. She smiled. "That's the thing about silence," she said. "Break it once and people start to believe it can be broken again." But that wasn't the end. That same week, an op-ed ran in a major paper. "Are we letting teenagers reshape corporate ethics?" It was written by someone we didn't know, but it was about us. About how emotion was becoming regulation, how public sympathy was weaponizing disruption, how maybe the Bell family had gone too far. I didn't cry. Not this time. I just stared at the words until the screen blurred, then closed the tab. Amari sat beside me. "Still want to be normal?" "No," I said. "I want to be loud enough that the next kid never has to be." Spring came late that year. The kind of spring where trees bloomed slow, as if they too were trying to figure out how to begin again. At school, the whispers had faded. The stares softened. The story that once followed us into every hallway now only lived in fragments, in a printed article tucked behind a bulletin board, in the way certain teachers paused before asking our opinion, like they weren't sure if we'd still answer like teenagers or revolutionaries. We did neither. We just answered like ourselves. The mandate was no longer trending. The hearings weren't being replayed. Loretta Bell was no longer front-page CEO. She was back to working quietly, taking fewer calls but building more coalitions. One policy at a time, one boardroom at a time. And us? We were no longer those girls on the plane. We were just Aria and Amari again. Almost. One Thursday, we got called to the principal's office. No warning, no explanation. When we walked in, she was standing by the window holding a letter. She turned, smiled softly. "This came addressed to both of you." She handed us the envelope, cream-colored, thick. Inside was a single page. Embossed logo at the top, North American Air Travel Consortium. "We're pleased to inform you that your story, your voice, and your persistence helped shape the 2025 Passenger Equity Compliance Framework, now adopted by over 70% of North American carriers. As a symbol of our gratitude, and in recognition of your courage, we'd like to invite you both to serve as inaugural youth advisors for the Passenger Ethics Review Board." I looked at Amari. She raised her eyebrows. "Didn't see that coming?" We didn't say yes, not right away. But we didn't say no either. That weekend, we visited a local library to help organize a youth storytelling workshop. Nothing fancy, just kids, notebooks, a circle of folding chairs. A boy, maybe 12, asked, "Is it true you changed airline laws?" Amari smiled. "We didn't change laws, we just refused to sit in silence." Another girl, maybe younger, whispered, "I get nervous flying. 'Cause of how I look." I leaned in. "I used to feel that too," I said. "Now I know nerves don't mean you're wrong. They just mean someone else made you feel like you were. She smiled. A little. Then wrote something in her notebook and didn't show anyone. We didn't speak at big conferences after that. Didn't tour. Didn't cash in. Mom never let anyone make merch with our names. No brands. No book deals. No headlines. Just impact. 3 months later, we were on another flight. Summer trip. Nothing big. Just us and Mom. We boarded late. No fanfare, no attention, just 3 seats in row 2 of first class. The flight attendant, a tall black woman with warm eyes, paused when she saw us. She didn't say anything. She just nodded, like she knew. Not the headlines, the weight. Halfway through the flight, I glanced around the cabin. No one stared, no one whispered. No one asked to see our boarding passes twice. I looked at Amari. She was asleep. Head against the window, peaceful. Outside, the clouds parted slowly, soft and gold. It hit me then. Not all stories end with victory. Some just end with space. Space to breathe, to belong, to not explain. When we landed, we didn't get applause. Didn't need it. We walked off the plane with our bags, our names, and our seat numbers intact. Weeks later, a new viral story made the rounds. Not discrimination. Just a girl who built a mobile app to help refugee families find safe transit routes. The headline read, "15-year-old redefines how youth lead." Someone tagged us. We didn't reply. We just bookmarked the article and shared it in our school group chat. No caption, just respect. The world kept spinning. People moved on, but something had shifted. Quietly, deeply, for good. And we knew it. Not because people told us, but because we could feel it every time we stepped into a place that once made us shrink and didn't feel small anymore. One day, I found that same girl from the workshop in the library again. She was writing something in her notebook, and this time she let me see it. At the top, she had written, "They didn't belong until they reminded the world they always did." I smiled. She grinned back. No explanation needed. Just echoes. Thank you for sticking with Araya and Amari Bell all the way to the end. We know. Stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're reminders. That silence can feel safe, but speaking up, even quietly, is what truly shifts the world. How about you? Have you ever been made to feel like you didn't belong, just because of how you looked, where you were, or how young you were? Have you ever stayed quiet, or wished you hadn't? Share your story in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from, because every voice, no matter how far, makes an echo that matters.